I will quote some of the LEC pro players. It's just not fair. Damn this champion. I hate this. He can just hit you so hard and so fast. Oh, I love this. The fact that Volibear is seeing a tick up though. Now, it technically is a flex pick. It can still be played in the top lane. I would love to see it in the jungle though, and now see EDG round out their composition with grabbing some hard CC, and Jiejie saying, okay, you have the hard farming Hecarim. I'm now going to go for the hard ganking Volibear, and I need good setup in my lanes to help EDG really muscle top esports out of their lane phase.
And I just love if we see it in jungle. His jungle clear now is so much healthier thanks to the W buff, and also with Stormbringer, or rather Sky Splitter. He's not really having a cap anymore, so feels pretty nice if you Jiejie. While on the other side, you talked about handshake, but Viper prefers the Kaisa we talked about here, not as much as JackeyLove prefers the Tristana, so it is a literal handshake where they're running back the same bottom lane.
Yeah, and the thing is EDG will historically always be about neutral objectives, and while Viper is just a phenomenal Kaisa, you saw how well he was able to pilot those ultimates kind of in that final team fight is like the crown jewel on top. But also one of the best things that Kaisa has available in her kit is her ability to burn through monster objectives so effectively with her Q and with her passive. So it also kind of doubles down into what EDG already really naturally like to do. They love to sculpt compositions that are really good around Baron and Dragon Pit, depending on what side they're on. You'll constantly see Meiko when he gets his Alistar kind of standing as the goalkeeper on the back of a pit. You know, you saw him try to do it to Karsa last time, and Karsa, you know, broke his ankles there with a really nice ultimate on the Olaf, but it's kind of the staple play that it doesn't matter if it's Deft, if it's Viper, if it's iBoy, if it's Name. You know, EDG have this core fundamental style that has just really been drilled into them by the machine that used to print so many championships.
And Meiko is a bouncer, you know, going to be doing what he did in game number 1. I like the Alistar on him. I think he's one of the best Alistars in the league next to Ming, historically. But moving through with the bans, EDG banning the Rise themselves. Now, this is interesting considering that we did see EDG on the blue side able to pick it up. They pay respect that top esports might aim for that angle running into the second game. And also seeing the Gnar, it's good because no one likes watching the Gnar. And, you know, Flandre has been, his most popular champion so far.
It does make the Orianna rise up pretty high in prio, especially as the blind pick that you assume Scott's going to have to take here. So I'm kind of leaning that route, that it's probably going to be an Ori pick and then counter pick for Flandre, depending on what 369 shows. The Zoe being banned maybe leans me towards an Azir. Obviously, Zoe has a decent matchup into the Azir due to the range match, so I'm feeling either an Azir, an Orianna. Obviously, Victor's still available, but probably one of those boring control mages.
Of course, but dive, right? Like, there's a lot of dive if they go towards that Azir. Those 4 picks are going to be strong, and top esports don't want to ban away a mid lane. If they get rid of the Nocturne yet again, same phase 2 bans. Let's truly see if it is going to be Scout on this control mage. His Orianna's also up and available, so could be boring either way, Frost, but at the very least, it is something Scout's comfortable on.
I like this. This is spicy.
Route. This has been seen a lot more as of recently. Great Everfrost user, and the Sylas gets locked in for EDG.
Yeah, and also has really good ultimates to choose from. Obviously, that means that Knight's Orianna is available, since Scout didn't look to deny that. But, you know, looking across from a Rell as well as a Hecarim especially, obviously Sylas rises up in priority, completely flew under the radar for me, as well as you just said, a great OP item abuser. So, multiple forms of CC, really good skirmish potential, and a lot of really good ultimates for him to steal. But there we go. I really needed top esports to pick up their Gragas.
There we go, because 7-0 is top esports on this pick. In 4 different positions, top esports have never lost during the 2021 spring season on this Gragas, and it's often banned away against them. So this is a really big pick for TES as their last pick in the draft. EDG are like, all right, how do we respond to this? We have a lot of dive, we have a lot of engage. And that is a Sejuani. So Volibear solo lane, Frost, you mentioned it. It looks like the Sejuani going over to Jiejie, something we haven't seen in a long while.
So, here's the thing. EDG really love their flex picks for obvious reasons. Usually you see more flex on blue side than you do on red. Obviously, it's being flexed here. Is he going to change that?
I have to point something out. In 2020, it was either spring or summer, Flandre ran Sejuani top.
Sej top is a thing.
It is a thing. So there is a chance that this doesn't get traded. We'll hold. We have 5 seconds. But Flandre in the playoff game against top esports to run into the semi-finals.
He's doing it.
It's a Sejuani top. You have the game advantage as well after dominating TES in 27-minute fashion, we return to the Rift for game number 2 to see if they can do it again. And I want to point out as we get into this one, Frost, because we hear the Jiejie. It is a Comet Gragas in the top, but also, again, a Karsa special on the Hecarim running Ignite and Smite.
And I do want to point out, yes, that Smite, or excuse me, that Ignite, but kind of touching quickly on Flandre's runes as they were flashed in the loading screen there, taking the Transcendence as well as the Inspiration Tree, so double CDR. Obviously, Flandre is going to be about getting as many rotations of CC cooldowns off as possible, as well as that ultimate. I can tell that the Chinese casters and the observers are just as interested in what the Sejuani is going to do. One of the big things about Sej, especially in early levels, is actually how much damage she can surprise you with in outburst or output due to her early burst damage with the passive. So looking at the runes, it's Phase Rush, there's your Transcendence, as well as, what is that rune called? You know what I'm talking about in the Inspiration Tree?
Water walking.
The little eye.
Oh, no.
No, not water walking.
Oh, man, you tested me, Frost. You tested me.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be my job. I let you down, Hysterics.
That's okay. That's all right. I should know.
Listen, guys. He's throwing his cooldowns. He's a spell flinger up there.
He's got cooldown reduction. He's got ability haste, rather. We're new age. We talk about ability haste now, but I think also importantly,
I haven't even gotten to cast the ability haste.
Oh, true. Actually, yeah, it's been a while. Been a hefty season. But look, essentially, I think it's important we look at where junglers are starting, right? I know jungle path is going to be really important here. You talked about the melee jungler going up with Flandre, who loves it with permafrost, but it is going to be Jiejie pathing all the way to the top side, so 369 might be in a little trouble here as we look a little bit closer. And I believe it is Summoning Insight, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
So
it's the Monte Cristo rune. I should have.
Yeah, the Monte Cristo rune. Good show.
Flandre, you're looking a little bit foolish here.
Ooh. Jiejie's in the mid lane. Scouts actually just forced the flash out of Night. Karsa coming for the response. Early action already as Jiejie too deep. He flashes away, but it's into a wall, so Karsa follows it up. Oh, no. The Ignite Hecarim jungle pays off yet again as Top Esports open this one with first blood.
So one of the things that I really like about Ignite on Hecarim is he's the type of champion that it used to be, once he kind of got the first kill, got level 6 and had that sheen, he immediately won majority of 2v2s. But with the Ignite, he's able to be that much more potent, that much earlier in the game, because he's bringing that much more damage. The biggest thing about Volibear is that he basically hits you for 80% of your HP in the early game. It just rocks in, just grabs, like mauls you to death, and it's like over. But Karsa's ability to match that damage output, to put himself in a winning 2v2 position by having the Ignite, is pretty big brain on that move there. And now 3-buffing poor little Jiejie here.
Yeah. Let's be realistic as well. I mean, if Flandre is pushed out of this game as well, it's going to take a while till he gets that tank item, until he gets even 6 right, where he's so useful as a Sej. So 369 a bit of an advantage in this top lane, and the first blood going to Karsa means bad news, as you mentioned. The triple buff at 3 minutes in the game.
I feel like it's actually really devastating because you have great range and great zone control on top esports composition. You know, you have the Orianna ball, you have the zone that Hecarim can output, the Gragas cast, of course, and then Rell and Tristana with that massive range. And when you are pretty short range, with Kaisa being a relatively short range ADC, she does have her ultimate to get into backline, but then 4 melee champions around her, and your Volibear has then fallen behind a hard scaling champion like a Hecarim. At 3 minutes into the game, this can really turn things sideways for EDG. It's not completely over, but if you're an EDG fan, you're starting to hit the siren alert. Oh
yeah, you absolutely are. And consider where Karsa's going next, because he'll be heading towards that bottom side after clearing out the 3 camps left remaining. And EDG's wave is still pushing in, so it might set him up for more success across the Rift. But just with the start of this early game, Frost, 1k gold lead already here. CS lead in the mid lane as well that's being built up by Knight. And this is what we know Top Esports for. The lane difference already showing true. And I guess the jungler's the lane as well. Karsa showed that with the early play to also set up Knight off the back end.
Yeah, and Karsa, of course, being the big beneficiary. You just talked about all of the CS differences in the lanes, but 40 to 28 in the jungle is a pretty big deal, especially when Karsa is sitting on his Krug camp. Now, I do want to point out some of the wave management that happened with bot lane. I thought that JackeyLove was actually going to take his reset, but instead he's hard pushing and getting a bounce and timing his resets with Hecarim. It could have potentially set up a freeze, I'll hold it. He could have potentially set up a freeze to open up a gank for Karsa on bot side, but it tells me that they actually want to play top side of the map because they didn't even look for that option, and Karsa is going to be rotating towards the top side of his camp cycle. So I expect Karsa's next move after a full clear or a full clear topside is either going to be looking mid or looking topside, especially with 369 holding the wave that the observer's pointing out for us.
I mean, that's oppressive. That's so oppressive. Flandre already burnt the TP, so of course he has to walk the lane, which is no biggie, but gives control to top esports that you're mentioning as Karsa hovering between the solo lanes. Also important to note that Zhuo's starting to move around the map as well, so the 3v1 or 3v2 in the mid lane, a very real possibility for top esports as they start this game 2 off a lot better than what we saw the other time around. So this is what we want to see from TES as Karsa will go back towards top side. And Frosk, I think it's also important to note that Knight has level 6 now. He doesn't have TP, but the Shockwave adds a lot of damage, a lot of control that he can now push towards bottom lane or even the top lane if he starts moving around.
I mean, to be honest, K-Drool had Larson on his stream just the other day, and Larson was talking through the matchup with Orianna and Victor. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different with Silence, but Larson was like, Orianna doesn't have any kill pressure unless she has access to that ultimate. So the lane is always going to be just a snooze fest until she has level 6, and like you said, it's a lot more pressure. We said that Karsa would probably be playing between top and mid. He was covering Knight while Knight was getting the wave slowly pushed in, but I think it's going to be a top. Flandre has to be really careful. Does have flash, but here comes Karsa.
He has ult, he has ignite back up and available. Remember, Flandre, Glacial Prison can stop this, and Sejuani is still pretty tanky on the first hit until the passive goes away. 369 has a big wave building, and go for it.
Yeah, the important thing is also the blue handoff. It's really well timed from top esports to know that the jungler is across map, which is why Karsa feels so confident to get this deep on Flandre.
And send him packing. Look at the wave pushing in. How much experience Flandre loses. He's already 15 CS down. Make that about 20. And that's devastating for EDG's top laner. Flandre is like forced out of the game.
Yeah, it's beautiful play from 369 and Karsa's pathing. Now, it looks like Scout's going to try to hard force something. He does really want to go in on Knight, but he needs to take a couple of rotations, and he doesn't see where Karsa is because Karsa took a reset, so Scout had to respect that Karsa could have been ganking him from the top side and didn't have a lot of mana. So that's why Scout pulled a little bit early, despite the fact that he was holding the ultimate. Such good pathing and basically vision manipulation from Karsa. Covering Knight when he's pushing the wave in, then going up top side with a 369 who had built up 3-wave stacking, forcing Flandre off and making him miss so much there. 64 to 40 CS.
Jiejie, what are you doing here? I mean, this is not your jungle. He thought he could respond. They thought Karsa was still up in the top lane, and Jiejie gets punished, man. This is a Karsa diff of a start if I've seen one.
It's just really beautiful from top. This is a much better early game and a much more typical early game that we see from top. Again, last game felt, you know, really fast, very skirmish heavy. We know that top do like to play through bot lane, which they did do, but they got out of lane phase very quickly, and we usually see this team sit in lane phase, build up these individual leads, and like you were saying, Hysteric, across every single member except for that bot lane, top esports are feeling so powerful.
Look at him taking away the Krug camp. Scout going in. He has the Shockwave still available. Will re-engage. Karsa gets pulled back in, but Karsa still has a lot of damage. Zhuo behind him, while Meiko was roaming all this time. And he does have the ult, you're right. In case he needs to get away, he'll just back off. Scout still does a lot of damage as a Sylas.
I feel like Sylas is the true Beyblade champion. Like, people always talk about Garen because he actually spins, but when I actually watch a Sylas, I'm like, he just sticks to you and then he spins, and then he sticks to you and then he spins.
And
just
now
an awful experience.
I mean, with how busted Ione and Boots of Lucidity are, like, there's already a lot of cooldown reduction. I keep using that word. I know it's wrong, but a lot of ability haste.
Balance team. There may be a problem when basically majority of people are running phase rush and majority of people are building CDR boots and majority of people are building Everfrost. Like, you know, I'm no expert, but I'm noticing some trends.
There are some trends. And EDG diving bot, that's another one. Meiko goes in for the ultimate, the unbreakable will. JackeyLove interrupted. In goes Viper with the killer instinct. And down goes Jiejie. It goes to Meiko, which is a small win, but EDG stick true to the game plan we know.
And also good news for Jiejie that he got majority of the CS that was under his tower. So yeah, it's kind of like the double whammy that Meiko picks up the kill, and the Tristana did get a decent amount of that CS before the dive, as well as the fact that Karsa is then also trading for the Herald. So It feels bad for JackeyLove, especially on the EXP difference, 7 to 8, and it's only going to grow for Viper here as he's denying, 2 waves from JackeyLove as he shoved in the tower and possibly picked up a plate. But TES as a team are still getting a lot to match what EDG are doing on the map.
They are, even after the play, right? It's almost 2k gold lead here at 10 minutes into the game. 369 managing a 30 CS lead while Shockwave used in the mid lane. Zhuo ready to engage, but not going to commit. But Knight does force Scout away from the turret. He has the teleport, and Meiko's even coming in to hover. But Knight is still lane differencing here. I mean, the CS mid is just as great as the CS in the top lane is teleport in the flank. Now, Knight has flash and TP himself, but Scout maybe just get back to lane with creative angles.
But also, I know nothing kind of amounted for it, but look at Karsa's positioning. As soon as that TP flank came in, even though they didn't see the ward, Karsa was sitting in the wings, kind of expecting that the only gank opportunity that EDG would have would be that mid lane. So constantly protecting, and it's kind of these invisible things that give me so much appreciation for Karsa. Even though that play didn't amount to a skirmish or Karsa coming to save the day, he was ready to do so. Right place, right time, and just his choosing of when he shows on vision, when he gives the enemy team information about where he is just what makes Karsa such a high-level jungler, as well as his mechanical ability and his ability to find smite.
And I think it's criminally underrated when people look at Karsa as a jungler and say, oh, well, he doesn't have the stats to support him, but the reason he doesn't is because he makes plays like this, threatening plays, or he's one of the best gankers in the league. Karsa plays towards his lane, and he gets called towards his lane as more specifically to mitigate a play or start one himself. He's even doing it now. Look at this. Not farming, even with a lead. Sitting mid, waiting for the call from Knight.
Yeah, waiting for that cooldown on the Shockwave, which is just now up. But meanwhile, top lane, 2v1.
Flandre has the ultimate available, but not going to throw out the Glacial Prison. Look at where Jiejie is. Just waiting, but in the meanwhile, Karsa spotted out on the bottom side. He's just going to invade. He's like, okay, fine. You can be top. I'll go back bot and take your camps.
Yeah, Jiejie is really late to this dragon setup. Dragon spawning in 5 seconds here, and you can see already that TES have, prio mid, prio bot lane, and now potentially a skirmish and fight over this blue buff. Now top, if they do want to really commit to this, oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
We were praising Karsa so much, he's like, guys, I can still mess up, don't worry. You don't really want to expend too many ultimates here unless you can guarantee a kill, because you expect that this would be a pretty big 5v5, or excuse me, a 4v4. Now 5v5 as the top laners are being pulled over this Drake. And we'll see if EDG try to muscle in. Flandre is here first, and there's no teleport on 369, so maybe this gives EDG the confidence, and it does, to bully top esports out of this river, but Flandre is going to lose pretty big waves and probably most of his tower in response for this dragon.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's a big sacrifice when you consider that 369 is going to be a big damage threat as well that EDG are going to have to deal with. This is a Night Harvester Gragas coming up that we've seen a couple of times in the LPL. And 369 is going to get there pretty soon. I mean, this first turret gold will go down in favor of top esports as soon as 369 bashes it down.
I'm not the biggest fan of the AP Gragas. I feel like a lot of people will do it when they feel like they get really far ahead, which 369 did. You're like, I feel so rich right now. This back's going to feel really good. And it's not as bad on this composition because you do have a true frontline like a Rell, as well as the Hecarim with the chem take, as well as Mercs. But I feel like some teams really fall into the trap where AP Gragas feels really good in lane phase and kind of that early initial teamfight mid game, but the longer games go on, the worse it feels because you don't get to be a tank. You kind of like, you start lobbing casks. You're looking for some sort of assassination potential there, maybe a 1v1, but it's really hard to do against EDG's comp. So I want to keep my eyes on 369 and see how successful he's able to translate this AP Gragas as we go later and later in the game. And if he does fall off on impact and this game scales out, if EDG are able to abuse that composition.
As now they're making a play towards mid lane. Knight gets a shockwave down, flashes, but it might be to his dismay. Meiko comes in, and this guy, the real cow of game number 2, as he picks up his second kill.
It hurts, Knight. I feel you. When the OP Hecarim ultimate is used against you, like, it's not fair. It hurts.
True.
He tried to play it as mechanically well as possible.
It's rough enough for Knight right now. I mean, he's 0-1, but there's been a lot of pressure towards his lane. Has been farming it up quite nicely, and Karsa's going to get a bit of a response. As JackeyLove pushed away the bottom lane. EDG defending this, but Karsa still ready to go in. He has his ultimate and Ignite. Jiejie trying to clear the wave. Turret's going to go down. They use this as an engage. Onslaught of Shadows into the back line. Pushes Jiejie back. The explosive cast completely whiffs as Meiko's like, I'm the carry now. Gets a massive shutdown, and this cow's actually huge as he walks in yet again. They're not going to give it over to him this time, and EDG's counterpunch is even stronger. Flandre brings in help from Viper with the killer instinct, and 369 against the wall. A glacial prison to give a shutdown to the AD carry, and EDG right back in it.
That's the breath of life that Edward Gaming were looking for. Like you said, it was kind of the overextension from top esports. A bit of a head scratcher for me. I'm gonna have to get a closer look at the replay. I feel like JackeyLove could have hit the tower a bit earlier. Maybe was playing a little bit too safe, but I'd have to see what ultimate Scout was holding. Maybe JackeyLove was afraid of an assassination potential from the Sylas who was standing under structure, but that delay and the tower going down and then the slight overstep of TES meant that EDG just slammed the door on them and picked up pretty massive gold, particularly in the pocket of Viper, which is exactly where they want it. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, so it's Jiejie and the Sky Splitter that's keeping JackeyLove out. But just like a tiny game, you know, if those auto attacks had come in just slightly earlier, I don't know. I won't give JackeyLove, I'll let him off on that one. I was like, he had a Volibear in his face. He was scared. I'd be scared.
I mean, the craziest thing about this fight for me is the fact that like, EDG just moved quicker, and this is what we saw in the regular season, right? Their counter punches are so good. Catching TES out when they go too far is like their speciality, as we now come to know.
I think the biggest difference for me in these teams, and there are a lot of them, is that when TES, they like double down. They're like, we can go for the skirmish, we can fight. And because they're so talented, they're often not punished for it. But EDG are really good that even when they lose, they're always making small trades in return. Yeah, they lose a skirmish, but they pick up, you know, waves or a tower across map. And you kind of see that all the time in kind of these 1-2 counter punches.
Karsa loses engage tool while they're trying to position around the Rift Herald. EDG just take that away. Thank you so much for the leash. Top Esports have to back.
And we're starting to see some of the issues of not having a big tanky front line that's able to get these beefy boys off of objectives. Hysterics, you know. Yeah. Suddenly this AP Gragas might not really start to pan out for them if EDG win that big team fight, start to really close this gold lead, are still sitting really happy because it's not like there's a threatened soul point on the side for TES. They have the 2 dragons in their pocket, you know, a 3rd mountain spawning, and as soon as this Oppo ad drops, brought to you by Oppo. We'll take a look at the items and see how confident. Okay, yeah. EDG are going to feel really confident actually fighting for this upcoming Drake, because look at those 2 stopwatches. They've got like the 2 stopwatches in the inventory. They're like, let's do this. Let's throw down. This is going to be the team fight that we break open this game on. So this is now the crucial, critical hold point for top esports if they want to get back into this game.
And if they stopwatch some of these ultimates, means they get out, but they found 369 who's moving towards the pit. He's just gone. EDG find the first crucial pick.
Gragas.
It's a 5 versus 4, and you're right, the AP Gragas doesn't have any tank stats to speak of. So EDG say thank you for the dragon. They'll move to Soul Point, and top esports are just without a head right now.
It is a disaster if you're a top esports fan. You know, we called it in the inventory that EDG were going to feel really confident to fight that one, and the fact of the matter is that top esports don't have the tools to deal with these beefy boys right now. So kind of next objectives is going to be playing around the mid and the top wave, as we can see that the Baron will be spawning pretty soon. So I expect EDG to either be playing pick on Flandre's side, although because it's a Sejuani, it's probably more so about grouping, but playing mid-top now. And top esports, they need to figure something out right now, because EDG are about to rip game number 2 away from them. We've called this the critical team fight, and I think that might have been the tipping point.
I mean, it was just 1 pick, but you're right, it's such a big moment here for EDG. Now that they've moved to Soul Point, and it couldn't be any better. For a team that has 3 tanks and an AP bruiser like Sylas, you've just given them a Mountain Dragon, followed by a Mountain Soul coming up in 4 minutes, if that's the case. So feels pretty good to be EDG right now in a commanding position, even though it's still a 1K gold lead for top esports, running out of options as we've seen in these fights. And moving forward, Frosk, I think it's important to note as we get towards these second items as well, there's other members we're going to have to start looking at. People like Scout, like Viper yet again, who are in a good position to carry in these fights and destroy top esports with a lot of follow-up.
Yeah, and now it's about can Karsa get on that Scout and on that Viper and kill them. So Karsa, doing his best Splinter Cell impression, has actually gotten in underneath EDG's vision. So finding these small windows to try to bite back here is...
Not again.
Dead again.
Oh, 369 on the run. Oh my god, it keeps on happening. And 369 burns his flash, almost getting caught out. Karsa was one making play on the top side, but 369 was going deep yet again.
And unfortunately, you could see what Top Esports wanted to do. You know, they have 369 kind of getting a deep flank from underneath. You have Karsa getting a deep flank from on top. And they are trying to find, like, these flank surprise moments as Karsa maybe overforcing. That's not the target you want.
Meiko gets to half health. The flash hit. Meiko flashing back. What? Everfrost
look at
used. Meiko running back, but he's dead. Karsa hits the other angle. Well, yeah, it's a 1-for-1. Both supports die. Two-man shockwave with onslaught of shadows while Viper goes golden. That's to utilize disengaging the ultis while JackeyLove's dishing out the damage. EDG sent away, and they're still on the wrong side of the map as the Herald's like, take that instead. Please leave us alone.
They're calling him back up. They need another member. Really beautiful team fight. As soon as Top Esports were kind of in that position where JackeyLove was getting to free hit on them, especially the Tristana, level 12 has a decent amount of range, and also the red buff. I think it just wore off now. That's when things started to feel good. So a couple of key things to call out. A, Meiko overextended, and Top Esports did a really good job kind of separating him from the team. Rell got a beautiful ultimate to make sure that EDG were split. Come on, JackeyLove, no! Don't throw it away.
Just the usual.
I know, right? Just the usual. And Knight had a really great shockwave that forced Viper into a reactionary stopwatch, which meant that EDG's damage was just negated for the duration of that stasis. So I don't know if Top Esports can do it again. I still feel like it's much harder for them to execute kind of on the team fight that they're doing, even though it kind of looks simple. It's like ball delivery service, like little Hecarim, express pony into shockwave, into Rell on top of it, but we haven't really gotten to see that combo. It's been much more chaotic fights, much more about zone control and kind of walking back with the Tristana. Some sign of life from Top Esports, but now we just got to see it again and again and again.
But they're on a timer, right? We're 1 minute 20. We get the Mountain Soul. They have to fight over that because if they give that to EDG, it feels like a sealed deal. And I think it's important to note that JackeyLove picks up the Lord Dominic's Regard ahead of this fight. A good armor shredding item that's going to net him a lot of work towards these front lines of EDG. So that next fight, I feel like is where we should start putting our eyes, as EDG already setting up the vision. Top Esports getting these last backs before it comes into fruition. And once again, eyes onto JackeyLove, it feels, or even the shockwave from Knight. On the other side, Frost, I'm thinking Viper, Scout, key damage dealers who are in great positions with two items themselves.
Yeah, and then just how obnoxious these melee champions can be to get in JackeyLove's face. You already called out the Dominic's, which is a great itemization from JackeyLove, but he's still, you know, probably another item down before he really has the kill pressure that he wants and the speed that he wants it at which to go through this front line. And I feel like if we are fighting front to back, it's often how quickly the front line of your team goes down. And I just feel like at this point, because it's an AP Gragas, Top Esports' front line will die much faster than EDG's front line, pending if the team fights kind of like set the line of scrimmage and they just, you know, roll at each other.
So 369 gets a good explosive cast. Haven't seen too many great ultimates from him in this game, but we know he's capable, as we saw against Suning in that game number 4. Dragon has spawned, EDG on one side, Top Esports on the other. It's very fitting here, defending champions versus the returning, as Top Esports going to move into the pit. Dragon started off and no one's hitting it.
This is a really good example we talked about with like Meiko playing goalkeeper, the fact that he kept cheating over behind the pit and now they've traded spot with Flandre. And Meiko's job is just like find Karsa, get him out.
And they're doing no damage to Flandre. I mean, they just used the ultimate Karsa to get over the wall. Remember, he doesn't have flash. The Dragon stole it. It is!
He got it!
Karsa gets sent back over again. Feels like the king of thieves here in the jungle, and Top Esports will keep the game going.
This guy is absolutely cracked. Oh my god, Karsa. He got that mid-air. He was literally an airplane and he just sniped it.
Literally went in the pit and was forced out in a matter of seconds. I can't believe he steals it again. That's steal number 2 in the series. Steal number 4 in playoffs so far. And because of a Top Esports get the mid lane turret, they almost catch out Jiejie. The game's not done here, Frosk. Even though there's a lot of issues to deal with, Top Esports get another 5 minutes.
If I make him, like, I don't know. This guy's breaking my ankles. I can't. What am I supposed to do?
What do you do?
I can't keep him out of the pit. Flandre was on top of him. Meiko's trying to punt him out. Karsa's just, Clutch king over here. Yeah, it's just a Mountain Soul, but like you're saying, that can mean so much when you have such a tanky comp. Now we'll see if EDG hard forced to get control over this Baron.
Knight almost caught out, had to TP in the end as well. You mentioned EDG moving around Baron Pit, but they're backing away for now. Looks like they're just clearing out some vision. Missed the control ward up top that Meiko's going to deal with, but we'll have another look at the fight here because I don't know how Karsa got this. He took the blast cone and as he was mid-air. Wow.
He was literally a Rafflecopter, and he was just laughing the whole way out. He was like, thanks, Meiko. I needed that.
It's going to give some good stats over the top esports, but hey, look, can he do it every time? Because 3 minutes 30, we saw EDG got priority in the river. They really took care of the objective, or at least so they thought. Top esports now. It's 26 minutes into the game for us. They are ahead in gold, but we have to remember that EDG are still one away from the Dragon Soul. Baron is up as well. And EDG have been threatening this so far, so a lot of options available for both these teams. We are going to get to those third items before we start deliberating on those options as well.
Yeah, and I really want to talk about the itemization now for Tristana, because we said that she was about like an item and a half before she has the kill threat that she wants. And reminder, we talked about it, you know, before some of the itemization started to get out of control. Oh no.
Glacial Prism used, passes out.
Walk it off.
They're turning it onto Meiko. There's the Unbreakable Will, the crash down, and both supports looking for angles. EDG going to back away, but with that, I mean, top esports, they've got a direction in mind, and it's purple.
It's still a little bit dangerous to go for this Baron, but maybe feeling confident because of how good Karsa's been on his smite. But you are starting to see the tables turn where a short-range composition, you know, if JackeyLove is able to just free hit, it's starting to get, you know, outmaneuvered now. So it's been this tug of war of EDG's comp is stronger at this point. Now TES's comp is stronger at this point. And I'm starting now to lean back towards top esports.
Oh, good explosive cast though. 369 missed the body slam before his Knight's caught out in the back end. Shockwave brings back in Viper, but he's stunned down. Onslaught of Shadow stolen by Scout and works it better. On the other end, Flandre was taken by top esports 369 and JackeyLove, but EDG have closed out on 2 members, and now they're on the Baron.
Karsa is still alive, doesn't have Onslaught of Shadow, and again, Viper had to use his flash there. The Shockwave still tagged him, but you know, the difference of a Kaisa who needs to rely on her ult now for repositioning versus Tristana who does have that rocket jump. Now, that said, it's actually pretty difficult for Tristana to find the right animation window to rocket jump against these champions who have so many cancel opportunities, as EDG now burning this Baron and Meiko on bouncer duty. Can he keep Karsa out?
I mean, Karsa's got the smite, not another steal. You gotta be sure. Get Karsa away from it at 1k into the back of the Onslaught of Shadows. They're waiting for him. Smite needs to come down. Oh, he doesn't get it this time around. Now has to make his escape, but EDG won't let him. And finally, an objective goes their way. EDG with the Baron.
All EDG fans, as soon as they see Karsa in the pit, they clinch. I don't care who you are, your butt is clinched right there. That is a Spincher splitter right there when Karsa is in pit, but it finally pays off for them. They pick up a lot of kills, TES over-forcing their hand, didn't want to let that one go and kind of funnel into the meat grinder there as EDG have finally taken the gold lead here.
They have, and they've got the Baron. Flandre wasn't alive to see it, but at the very least, it's going to be a lot of pushing power. We'll have a look again, Frost, because they held it at 2k, and they're not going to give it over a second time.
I mean, at that point, you're like, it can't get under 1k because you have to keep it away from the enemy jungler smite. Oh my god, he almost got it too.
He almost got it. Wasn't even keeping away. I think he actually almost got it. 48 HP from what I could see. And hey, we're just going to fight again. Baron has been taken, but Karsa's going to put another rabbit out of the hat with 10 seconds left on the Dragon Soul for EDG.
Okay. This, though, the fact that EDG have the Baron, if top esports, you know, wipe here, that's going to be a majority of their base. So this has got to be the clutch team fight. Again, you're looking at zone control to make space for JackeyLove to tear through this front line. Watch Flandre on the side, doesn't have access to Sejuani ult.
Yeah, I don't know what Flandre used it on, something off screen, but he's going to go in anyway. Flashes on in. No Glacial Prism, but that's the angle. Zhuo trying to turn around the Shockwave and the explosive cast. That's anti-synergy from TES, and they get wiped here, Froskurinn. Viper cleaning up the fight. Scout yet again, and TES are getting outmatched here today against EDG.
Have you ever seen a quarterback just get destroyed in the back line? That was a true American football sack. That was just a bunch of giant dudes just flopping down onto top esports, and they just got smashed. The little ball popped out of them. EDG grabbed it, and they're sprinting towards the end zone.
And I mean, look at the death time. As Draw's coming up in about 5 seconds, JackeyLove in 10. It won't be the end of the game here, but the base will be close to being in tatters. EDG with a firm gold lead. They have the Mountain Soul now as well. And it just feels like top esports running out of options. I said that 5-10 minutes ago, but this series so far, it's the returning Kings all the way.
Yeah, and top esports, you know, to their credit, they did have that glimmer of hope when Karsa got the steal. It bought them a bit more time to start to scale up, to start to get like some of the itemization that they were missing. There's that Flandre ultimate that we were kind of wondering where it went before we came out of this replay, so thank you, observers, for showcasing where that one went. And then Flandre flashes over the wall, gets into the back line. You called it anti-synergy, and it just becomes an absolute dog pile, in all honesty. The flash from the Volibear, Meiko goes in, Rell is just holding everyone on top of what is a decent shockwave, but you know, that is a mosh pit of a team fight.
That was not top esports' strongest moment right there, and we come back to live, and hey, 369 he died again. And you were pretty right about the AP Gragas. It has done pretty much nothing in this game. And they're going to go in for another engage. Rocket jump to get him to safety, but the real question is Karsa going to survive? Onto Meiko, the damage being dealt by JackeyLove. Well, the shockwave's good, but Glacial Prison yet again. Goodbye, JackeyLove. EDG have this second game in the bag. It's just about how they finish it off. As there we go, Permafrost yet again forces the flush out of Night. The shockwave used by Scout, but does he care? Everfrost into the Kingslayer. Spin to win. You're so right. Better than Garrett for Scout to get the ace.
Yeah, the little Beyblade even messing up mechanically there. If we get a chance at that replay, I think he preemptively shockwaved before he flashed, so sombreroed it a little bit. But EDG now moving to match point in a series that everyone thought top was going to be favored.
And it hasn't gone longer than 1 hour. 32 minutes in this game too. And EDG looking primed and ready to go. Top esports getting outmatched here, and EDG just look like a team possessed. This squad with Viper, Scout. I mean, this is clinical play. Nothing more to say than that.
I mean, you know, top esports are all about, you know, win lane, win game, but EDG are you know, they sacked lane phase this game, and it's, you know, lose lane, win game. They've been better on the team play, and I've seen it happen multiple times with the AP Gragas. You know, a pro player is feeling really confident. They get ahead in their lane, and individually, it feels so good, but you don't get to end the game fast enough for that pick to really be pivotal. And I think kind of one of the biggest differences in this series is the impact that 369 is actually happening. And this isn't to say that he's playing bad, because I don't necessarily believe that, but you know, his Aurelia didn't get to do anything because Rise got hyper-fed, couldn't face that matchup. He felt great in lane phase against Flandre, but then just couldn't tank for his team when they needed them, and they fell behind. So, you know, top esports need to kind of reevaluate and get their trident working, because right now they're fighting with a spork.
That's right. It's no one likes sporks. No one even knows why they exist. The biggest problem is that we've seen a top esports that could dominate through lanes. We've seen the Game 3 versus Suning. We've seen top esports in the regular season versus EDG, and some glimmers of that with Karsa in the early game. He found such a massive lead, but EDG were able to stall the game out, as EDG have done so many times around. We know them as being the slower team, and that time around, they were able to halt the tempo of top esports yet again, get themselves a Mountain Soul, play the team fights better. And it just feels like so far, EDG are the better team within this series. It feels like top esports are not getting, as you said, to hold the pitchfork, the trident, the 3-lane setup, where we know top esports will win lane and then go to win the game.
I mean, the simplest way to talk about it is that top esports are really used to winning because they're better players, and EDG usually win because they're a better team. And fundamentally, that's what's happening right now. You know, when top esports make a mistake, they don't usually get something cross-map. Sometimes that they do, but sometimes they don't. Whereas it feels like every time EDG are making a mistake, they are finding themselves in a position where they're getting something. And like, while that gold graph does look like a pretty big swing, it was pretty close or pretty back and forth. I think about a 2 to 3K you know, gap between the two teams for a lot of it, but like where that gold was stacked, you know, it wasn't in JackeyLove's pocket, and that's where it needed to be to have kill pressure on this comp.
That's right, JackeyLove, we didn't see too much of him in this game, was dealing out damage in the fights, but it was only Meiko who was zoning him away, where he just had to hit the Alistar, who survived so long. I think another big part as well is you see 3,000, 3,500 gold in top esports lead. A lot of the game we were talking about EDG. We were talking about them quelling. We were talking about them delaying. The game was going in their favor because they were setting up for a Mountain Soul. Flandre fell behind, but it was like, it's still a tank, so he's still going to be relevant in these fights. So it was always like EDG had a say in that game, and that the gold felt even though on the table it says 3,000. So I'd say from my perspective, you know, watching top esports all season, disappointing so far. I feel like top esports are an explosive team, and watching Suning and casting Suning, they were so much fun. But here they feel deflated. It feels like EDG are just popping the balloons as they come up.
Yeah, it feels like top are trying to figure out where they want to attack, but, you know, their teeth aren't really sinking in here. Individually, Karsa, I think, has had a strong series. I really liked his pathing early on. He set his team up really well. We were talking about, you know, like, oh, EDG might be on the back foot here. This is a Hecarim that got an early lead. It had the Ignite, and now all they need to scale up. You had massive CS leads for all of top esports, basically in every single position and lane outside of that bottom lane. But they weren't able to translate on that, to make that into a winning maneuver. So they need to take their laning prowess and need to figure out how to either snowball that effectively, or they need to start caring more about their dragon setups, because we're in a meta, at least globally, where it feels like a 5v5 front to back neutral objective stacking meta, and this is EDG's bread and butter. The meta really suits them right now, and top esports have been just trying to brute force their style, which is Lane Kingdom. But you need like lane domination because it's running out of steam right now.
And you need those picks that can really just take over by storm. Like, I think as well, we saw the Gragas AP top. There was a huge CS lead there. There was first turret. Flandre was in a bad position.
He got such a huge lead.
But the AP Gragas didn't do much against 3 tanks, and he missed a lot of casts. I don't know about 369, but he needs a bit of a reset, and maybe so do we. Ladies and gentlemen, 2-0 start for EDG. A lot of questions being thrown up in the air. We'll see if top esports can bring this back and at least get towards that reverse sweep after the break.